Fix this engine and I'll marry you. He did it.
If you fix this engine, I'll marry you, laughed the female CEO, and the humble mechanic did it. Before we start, I love seeing this community grow. Feel free to introduce yourself below. The October rain hammered against the windshield as Sarah Wellington's Mercedes sputtered to a halt on Route 47, 3 miles outside Millbrook. Steam poured from under the hood like an angry dragon's breath. At 33, Sarah had built Wellington Foods from a small family bakery into a $100 million empire, but right now she felt utterly helpless. Perfect, she muttered, designer heels clicking against wet asphalt as she stepped out. Her tailored suit was soaked within seconds. A rusty sign ahead read, "Morrison's Auto Repair. Fair prices, honest work." The garage smelled of motor oil and coffee. A man emerged from under a pickup truck wiping grease-stained hands on blue coveralls. Jake Morrison, 29, had kind eyes that seemed older than his years. His dark hair was messy and stubble shadowed his jaw. "Engine trouble?" Jake asked, his voice warm despite the late hour. "It just died," Sarah said, crossing her arms against the cold. "I have a board meeting at 8 tomorrow morning in Chicago. This cannot be happening." Jake grabbed his tools and followed her outside. Under the hood, he diagnosed the problem quickly. "Your cooling system's shot, radiators cracked, water pumps failing. This isn't a quick fix." Sarah's phone buzzed with urgent texts from her assistant. The quarterly reports, the merger talks, the investors waiting. "How long?" 2 days, maybe 3 days. "Need to order parts. I'll pay double for overnight shipping." Jake studied her face, seeing desperation beneath the polished exterior. "Money won't make the work go faster, man. Some things just take time. Everything has a price, Mr. Morrison. Jake Morrison." He closed the hood firmly. "And some things can't be bought." Sarah felt frustration building like pressure in a steam engine. This small-town mechanic didn't understand. In her world, problems disappeared with the right amount of money, the right connections, the right pressure applied in the right places. "Look, I'll be honest with you," she said, rain dripping from her perfectly styled blonde hair. "I'm desperate. I've got 300 employees depending on decisions I make tomorrow. If you can get this car running by morning, I'll pay you $10,000. Jake raised an eyebrow. "That's more than I make in 4 months. Then we have a deal?" He shook his head slowly. "Lady, I could use that money more than you know, but I can't perform miracles. This engine needs real work, not wishful thinking." Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. Private jets, helicopter services, anything. But Millbrook was too small, too isolated. She was truly stuck. "There's a motel down the road," Jake offered quietly. "Clean rooms, decent coffee. Sometimes life forces us to slow down." As if summoned by his words, a small voice called from inside the garage. "Daddy? Is someone out there?" A little girl appeared in the doorway, clutching a worn teddy bear. Emma Morrison, 5 years old, with her father's dark eyes and an angel's face. She wore pink pajamas with unicorns and tiny slippers shaped like rainbows. "Emma, honey, go back inside. It's late," Jake said gently. "I heard voices. Are you fixing someone's car?" Sarah watched the tender interaction, something stirring in her chest. When had someone last looked at her with such pure love and trust? "This is Miss..." "Sorry, I didn't catch your name," Jake said. "Sarah. Sarah Wellington." Emma stepped forward shyly. "Miss Sarah, Daddy's the best mechanic in the whole world. He can fix anything." "Emma," Jake warned. But his daughter continued. "He fixed Mr. Peterson's tractor that nobody else could fix, and Mrs. Chen's van that was making scary noises. And he even fixed my bicycle when the chain came off and I was crying because I thought it was broken forever." Sarah found herself smiling for the first time in days. "He sounds pretty amazing." "He is," Emma declared. "Daddy, show Miss Sarah how you can make the engine sing." Jake's cheeks reddened. "That's enough, sweetheart. Miss Wellington needs to get to her motel." But Sarah didn't move. Something about this little family in their humble garage felt more real than her entire corporate empire. "Actually," she heard herself saying, Maybe I could trouble you for that coffee you mentioned? The garage's small office felt like stepping into another world. Emma had insisted on making Sarah the best hot chocolate ever, while Jake prepared coffee in a pot that had seen better decades. Family photos covered a bulletin board. Jake and Emma at a county fair, building a snowman, reading together on a porch swing. "Where's her mother?" Sarah asked quietly, while Emma arranged marshmallows in perfect patterns. Jake's jaw tightened. "Linda left 3 years ago, said she couldn't handle the small-town life anymore, wanted excitement, opportunities." He stirred sugar into his coffee. "Haven't heard from her since." Sarah studied the photos more carefully. In the earlier ones, a young woman with strawberry blonde hair stood beside Jake, but her smile seemed forced, her eyes distant even then. "I'm sorry," Sarah said, and meant it. "And Emma barely remembers her. Sometimes I think that's a blessing." Jake watched his daughter with fierce protectiveness. "We do just fine on our own." Emma returned with a steaming mug topped with miniature marshmallows arranged like flower petals. "For you, Miss Sarah. Daddy taught me the recipe." The hot chocolate was surprisingly good, rich and creamy with a hint of vanilla. "This is delicious, Emma. Thank you. Daddy makes the best everything. He makes pancakes that look like animals, and he sings songs that make me laugh when I'm scared of thunder, and he reads me stories with different voices for all the characters." Sarah found herself genuinely curious. "What kind of stories?" "Princess stories, but not boring ones. Daddy makes them exciting, like the princess who fought dragons and the one who became a pirate captain and the one who could talk to animals." Jake rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "Emma has a big imagination." "I think that's wonderful," Sarah said, remembering her own childhood. Her father had been too busy building the company to read bedtime stories. Her mother had hired nannies for such things. "What kind of work do you do, Miss Sarah?" Emma asked, settling cross-legged on the floor beside her father's chair. "I run a food company. We make snacks and meals that you can buy in stores." Emma's eyes widened. "Like cookies?" "Among other things, yes." "Do you make the cookies yourself?" Sarah laughed, a sound that surprised her with its genuine warmth. "No, sweetie. I have other people who do the actual cooking. I mostly sit in meetings and make decisions." "That sounds boring," Emma declared with 5-year-old honesty. "Emma!" Jake scolded, but Sarah held up a hand. "She's not wrong. It can be very boring sometimes." Sarah looked around the cozy office with its mismatched furniture and Emma's drawings taped to the walls. "This feels much more interesting. Daddy's going to teach me about engines when I'm bigger," Emma announced proudly. "But first I have to learn my letters and numbers really good." "Really well," Jake corrected gently. "Really well," Emma repeated dutifully. "Daddy helps me with homework every night after dinner." Sarah watched Jake's face soften as he looked at his daughter. When had anyone ever looked at her that way? Her parents had loved her, certainly, but their love had always felt conditional, tied to achievements, success, living up to the Wellington name. "How old were you when you started working on cars?" Sarah asked Jake. 12. "My dad owned this place before me. Started me off changing oil, checking tire pressure. Said if I was going to inherit the business someday, I'd better understand it from the ground up." "Do you miss him?" "Every day. He died when Emma was 2. Heart attack, right there by the hydraulic lift." Jake's voice caught slightly. He would have loved watching her grow up. Emma leaned against her father's leg. "Daddy says Grandpa Joe is watching from heaven, and that's why the tools always end up where we need them, even when we can't remember where we put them." Sarah felt her throat tighten unexpectedly. That's a beautiful way to think about it. The rain continued drumming against the windows, creating an intimate cocoon around the three of them. For the first time in years, Sarah wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or market projections, or the endless emails waiting on her phone. "Miss Sarah," Emma said sleepily, "do you have any kids?" The question hit like a physical blow. Sarah had always planned to have children someday after she'd built the company, after she'd proven herself, after she'd found the right man. But someday had never come, and now at 33, she was beginning to wonder if it ever would. "No, honey, I don't." Why not? Emma, that's not polite to ask, Jake said gently. It's okay, Sarah said, though it wasn't really. I guess I've been too busy with work. Emma considered this seriously. Work is important, but kids are importanter. That's what Daddy says. More important, Jake corrected automatically, but his eyes met Sarah's with unexpected understanding. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching Sarah's mood as reality crashed back. Her phone had died during the night, and Jake's ancient landline had taken 20 minutes to connect her to her assistant in Chicago. The board is furious, Melissa's voice crackled through the static. Henderson's threatening to call for a vote of no confidence. The Yamamoto deal is hanging by a thread. Sarah paced the small motel room, still wearing yesterday's wrinkled suit. Through the window, she could see Morrison's auto repair across the street. Jake was already under the hood of her Mercedes, Emma sitting on a nearby crate, swinging her legs and chattering away. Reschedule everything, Sarah ordered. Push the board meeting to Thursday. Tell Henderson if he wants my head, he can wait 48 hours for it. By noon, Sarah had exhausted her patience with the motel's paper-thin walls and broken air conditioning. She found herself walking across the street to the garage, drawn by the sound of Emma's laughter. Miss Sarah! Emma jumped down from her perch and ran over. Daddy found the broken part. It looks like a metal pretzel. Jake emerged from under the hood, wiping his hands. Radiator's worse than I thought. The whole cooling system needs to be rebuilt. He studied her face carefully. I ordered rush delivery on the parts. Should be here tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon? Sarah closed her eyes, calculating the damage. I'll miss the board meeting. Probably lose the Yamamoto contract. Henderson will use this to question my leadership. Who's Henderson? Emma asked with innocent curiosity. Someone who wants Miss Sarah's job, Jake explained simply. Emma's face scrunched up in indignation. That's not nice. You can't just take someone's job. Sometimes grown-ups do mean things, sweetheart, Sarah said, sitting down on Emma's crate, especially when there's a lot of money involved. Money's important, but it's not the most important thing, Emma declared with the wisdom of someone who'd never worried about quarterly earnings. Daddy says the most important things are family and being kind and helping people and making sure everyone has enough to eat. Jake's cheeks reddened. Emma, you don't need to repeat everything I tell you. But it's true, Daddy. You always help people even when they can't pay very much, like when you fixed Mrs. Rodriguez's car for free because she needed to get to her job at the hospital, and when you stayed up all night to fix the delivery truck for the food bank before Thanksgiving. Sarah looked at Jake with new interest. You did that? It wasn't a big deal, Jake mumbled, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. 20 families got Thanksgiving dinner because of Daddy, Emma continued proudly. And Mrs. Rodriguez got to keep her job, and her little boy got to stay in the good school. Emma, enough, Jake said firmly, but kindly. Sarah watched the interaction, fascinated by the dynamic between father and daughter. In her world, people constantly promoted themselves, highlighted their achievements, fought for recognition. Here was a man who actively avoided credit for genuine goodness. I could use lunch, Sarah announced impulsively. Is there anywhere decent to eat in this town? Maggie's Diner has the best pie in 3 counties, Emma said immediately. And they have grilled cheese cut into triangles. Jake hesitated. We usually just eat sandwiches here at the shop. My treat, Sarah said. Considerate payment for the coffee and hot chocolate last night. 20 minutes later, they were squeezed into a red vinyl booth at Maggie's Diner, Emma between the 2 adults, chattering away about everything from her kindergarten teacher to the stray cat that lived behind the garage. She comes by every morning for breakfast, Emma explained, carefully dipping her grilled cheese into tomato soup. Daddy leaves out food for her, but she's too scared to come inside yet. What do you call her? Sarah asked. Princess Whiskers, because she has really long whiskers and she sits up straight like she's wearing a crown. Sarah found herself smiling again. That's a perfect name. Daddy says if we're patient, she'll learn to trust us. Trust takes time, right, Daddy? That's right, sweetheart. Jake's eyes met Sarah's across the table. Some things can't be rushed. The diner was filled with the lunch crowd, farmers in work clothes, shop owners taking a break, elderly couples sharing apple pie. Several people stopped by their table to chat with Jake, asking about family members, thanking him for some small kindness. "You're kind of famous around here," Sarah observed after the fifth person had greeted him warmly. "Small town," Jake said simply. "Everyone knows everyone."